Yo, 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 what's going on? It's the NRW, where nerds rule the world. It's your boy, Kuya P, aka Patrick Michael Strange. And today we are going to be checking out and talking to the director for an amazing documentary that was the 2021 Tribeca Film Festival Audience Award winner. It's called Ferguson Rises. It tells a story about Michael Brown and the movement of Black Lives Matter. I'm so excited and delighted to be talking with Mobolaji Olambiwonnu. I'm going to throw it to the trailer right now, and then we'll have a great conversation with this amazing director that you're going to want to check out right now. So here we go, the trailer for Ferguson Rises.
I can hear my neighbor crying, saying I can't breathe.
How do you heal of a senseless murder?
And now I'm in the struggle
Of an officer killing your son in the middle of the street.
saying I can't leave.
Put your lighters up for Mike Brown.
The percentage of black people in Ferguson is 67%, and only 6% of the cops are black. That's what you call the good old white boys club, and that's going to end.
They're always showing the rage and the anger, and that's not really where protest comes from. The commitment comes from the love.
Love is the only thing that really allows us to keep going forward.
Come together united to make that change against one common enemy, the system.
You need to disperse immediately.
I've never been so brokenhearted in my life. The areas that were burned down, those were areas where people who are economically challenged live.
I know that this is not a perfect community. I know that we have things that we have to change, and I am committed to being part of that change.
Nobody woke up that morning when their loved one was dying and say, hey, I want to be the face of the movement.
Losing a child is hard. We have to do things that build us back up.
We must organize, and organize.
The death of my son did do change. Mike Brown equals change. Is it over? It's not never over. It's just the beginning.
I will stand for you. Would you stand for me?
Boom, there you go, the trailer for the 2021 Tribeca Film Festival Audience Award winner, Ferguson Rises. And right now, as you see him on the screen, I'm going to throw up these air horns. He's going to hear it in post later, but the air horns are going off because we're excited and delighted to be joined with Mobolaji Olambiwonnu. Welcome, sir. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Really appreciate your time and really appreciate being on the show.
Definitely. Again, congratulations on winning the Tribeca Film Festival Audience Award for this amazing documentary that is so important. To kick us off with this interview, can you tell me how this project came to you? I see that it was helped you on the production team, the amazing David Oyuelo, as well as Jessica Oyuelo. And I might have brutalized names there too, as I've been stumbling as we've seen thus far, which I'm terrible with names. But how they came to work with you and put this amazing documentary together.
Yeah, they're David Oyuelo and Jessica Oyuelo came on probably about 3 years in, maybe 4 years in. I lost track. So they helped us sort of bring in some of the last funds and push the doc to completion. But how it started was many years ago, almost 7 years ago, with just me and my wife in the kitchen, where she gave me permission to head to Ferguson right after Michael Brown's murder. So I think, I'll summarize the story and say that essentially my wife was 7 months pregnant when Michael Brown was killed. I was doing other work in South Central Los Angeles, shooting a little short doc on how people find hope, love, and beauty in the midst of tragedy. And my goal was to sort of create this counter narrative for the Jordan Downs housing projects and South Central by extension, to show that the people of South Central are more than just people who are traumatized, who are dealing with gangs, but in fact, people who have hope, love, and beauty in their lives. And so I had started that piece, and then Michael Brown was killed right around the same time. And And I kept thinking, wow, I'd love to see if there's an opportunity to take this concept of hope, love, and beauty to Ferguson and see if we can find some level of hope within this tragedy that took place. And but I was concerned about telling my wife that because she was 7 months pregnant. She wasn't doing well. So I just kept my mouth shut for about a week, but I kept thinking it. And then she turned to me in the kitchen one day and said, you know what, randomly without any prompting, she said, I think you need to go to Ferguson and do this hope, love, and beauty thing there.
Wow.
And so we were obviously on the same sort of wavelength, that she knew what I was thinking, but I didn't say it. And so she said it. And then after she said that, then I called my cinematographer, and it was just essentially my wife, my cinematographer, and my good friend Tanayi, who helped produce the film, who started calling people and making connections to get us interviews on the ground. Again, this is almost 7 years ago. And we just spent that time, making connections to people on the ground and shooting. And then eventually, other people came on board to help out with different things. And they pushed us, each person that came along, or each group that came along, pushed us to the next level, pushed us to the next level, pushed us to the next level, until we finally finished. But it wasn't, clearly it wasn't easy. It's almost 7 years, and you can tell no one wants to spend 7 years making something. But the sad truth is that even after 7 years, the film is still relevant. These issues are still important. And the good news is that that Michael Brown and those people who sacrificed and lost their lives have brought the awareness to a level that we see it in the media now. We didn't used to see it before Michael Brown, but now we see it. Now we're aware of it. Now that there's Black Lives Matter, now there's organizations that people are organizing. So the 7 years in a way was also a gift, because it brought us to a point where the film now has even more relevance and has even a bigger audience than it might have back then.
Yeah. And having watched the film, that kind of wrapped it up too for the end of your documentary, because it had gone on this long to put it together. Wow, man. So as a filmmaker, were you always into putting together documentaries that had created awareness for situations and things that are going on in the world that you feel and wanted to speak on? Or were you more of a narrative guy? How did what kind of a filmmaker were you before Ferguson Rises? And you said you were working already on a piece in LA, so I was assuming you were working on another doc before this.
Yeah, I was at that time. I was working on lots of docs that I didn't finish before this. So I started many projects, and I have many projects on the shelves, still waiting to be completed. Now I haven't given up on any of them, but this one just seemed to take move to the forefront of everything, given the immediacy of it all, and given the emotional trauma that was associated with it. It felt like it was the most important thing to do at the time. But to your question, which was what kind of filmmaker or what kind of films have I made before? I mostly worked for other people. I made short films in graduate school, won some awards there, which I'm fortunate to have won, and then got out of graduate school, graduate film school at the American Film Institute, and then was kind of floundering for a long period of time, like a lot of people when they get out of school, just trying to figure out what my project is going to be. Had a couple feature films on deck that were supposed to be produced, things that fell through, and then kind of had a moment where I shifted into other work for a little while, shooting, editing, mostly shooting for a while, a lot of documentaries and stuff for people.
Okay.
And then finally sort of found my way back to the point. I was actually inspired by some of the work that Ava DuVernay was doing. She came out of her film was Middle of Nowhere, but she came out of nowhere in a sense, and started making movies that without a background really in directing. And so having gone to school with her and having known her on a personal level for many years, it's just inspiring to see her do that. And so I thought, well, hey, if Ava can do it, actually I went to film school, why shouldn't I get myself back together and do it, right? So that was part of the impetus. And then other friends of mine who hadn't gone to film school who were making films as well. And I thought, I don't know what's holding me back. I gotta shift that. And then this opportunity happened with Michael Brown.
Yeah.
I don't want to call it an opportunity and belittle the life of someone that was lost, but this, for lack of a better word, opportunity came up to make this documentary about Michael Brown, and this just felt like the right fit. A lot of things didn't feel like the right fit along the way, but this really felt like it called to me, and so that's how we wound up here.
Okay. So as an artist myself, as an actor, as a filmmaker, actor, and now host doing pop culture shows and interviews like this, we try to find our own footing, and I'm curious if this is as well for you, which led you to documentary work. Is you want to create art to entertain but also educate, or at least that's one of the primary goals for myself. And so documentaries was something I've always had interest in, but then was something I didn't completely dive into, because then you connect with the people that you want to document, and you build those relationships, and how difficult it can be. So I found my different selves in different roles, and and I'm still finding myself, and it's interesting to hear that I'm not alone in that. You were going through that same journey as well, and so you found Ferguson Rises, and to help speak on subjects. So in regards to Ferguson Rises, what I love in this respect was, a lot of times you see these documentaries that come out, but it isn't told by our point of view. As an Asian American, I see a lot of white Americans trying to tell my story, or people of other races. And, I appreciate that they want to tell our stories, but it just doesn't, it doesn't feel whole, and it doesn't feel it's a different perspective. And when I think is, if it's going to be put out to the masses, I would like at least the people of my color to have that say in it. So I was very excited and happy to see you to be behind this, and then David Oyelowo and Jessica behind this to help speak on this. So for you, as you stated, and I love that your wife encouraged you later on to go out to Ferguson. How was it for you as an African American, and as this situation was happening? Are you an activist in a way as well? And was this a way of you to march on with them and help tell this story?
Yeah, I mean, I think in my college days, I was definitely much more of a protester, much more of someone, protest body, someone who was out there doing the protesting, and I mean, while that I think was very important, even all the way up through the Iraq War and whatnot, that was very important. I felt like there has to be some way to bring my skill set to bear, some way to have this filmmaking also play a role in my activism. And so for me, yeah, it was a natural extension of the work that I've been doing before, and just my commitment to my community, and my commitment to to all Americans. I mean, I think people sometimes have this misconception that when a film is about Black people, it's not about other people. So I'm glad that you obviously don't have that misconception, but when one group of people wins, we all win.
Yes.
And I think people forget that. They think I can win and you can lose, and that's somehow going to be a lasting win, a lasting victory. But in fact, if I win and you lose, you're in a position where it's going to make you want what I have, right? So, but if we can win together, we can all have a piece of something that lifts us all up. And I feel like we have to understand and contextualize Black history, and understand that the liberation of Black people and the freedoms that Black people have fought for have benefited a whole bunch of other communities, from women to immigrants to handicapped to gay and lesbian community to or LGBTQIA. We'll add that to all these different communities. And so people have to understand that interconnectedness, and that we don't live in isolation as communities. And so this, for me, was an extension of that philosophy, which is why I chose to also not just spend my time with activists of the film, but also spend it with some police officers, both white and Black police officers, women, white and Black citizens, protesters, et cetera, because I wanted people to get a sense of our shared humanity. We may not agree on everything, but we are all human beings, and we have to sort of accept and figure out how to work together in this country in order for things to move forward. And so that's what the film really, what I wanted the film to reflect. I also want to acknowledge that there are, there were other producers involved with the film as well. There were a ton of people involved that got to this point, of course, and I can't acknowledge all those people, but certainly, my producer Tanayi came on board, Kai Bo, my wife helped as well, Tamika Lamison, Nicholas Moon, who worked with David Oyelowo. And then the other executive producers, David Oyelowo brought on Gigi Pritzker. Gigi Pritzker is a filmmaker and a film investor and a philanthropist and whatnot, and she helped as well. And TJ Martin, who was Academy Award winner, an Emmy winner, who also made the film that's out now, Tina Turner, the Tina movie. He is the person who brought on David. So there's sort of this long chain of people,
Definitely.
And at one point in time, J. Cole, the rapper, was involved. Now RZA from Wu-Tang has helped out. So there's been Aloe Black, the singer. There's just so many people who made this thing possible at various points, came on, helped push it forward, helped engage us and introduce us to other people. So, essentially, yeah, it's been a huge process. So I want to give thanks to those people. Sandra Evers Manley, who was my main investor, my largest investor, and who created Films of the Purpose and Black Hollywood Entertainment Resource Center. She, she's in charge. And the screening that's happening this Friday, or the week run that begins this Friday, is something that she helped put on as well. So there are a lot of people that put this together, and I want to acknowledge them as well in this interview for sure.
Definitely. Yes. And thank you all. And my apologies if it seemed like I might have missed you guys, but it should be known and illustrated that it does take a village, and it's very appreciated, and all the respect to everybody that contributed on this film, to the amazing cast and crew, and the people and the actual subjects to be willing to share, when it's so difficult. And speaking on that, when you go to make documentaries like this, again, it's something that I've always wanted to dabble in, but just I knew it would be hard, and so I was like, man, let me find some other sources, because I'm a very empathic person, so I'm gonna feel it. I had a friend when a lot of these protests were occurring to speak out on this, and it was so important. The Charlottesville riots, because I'm here in Northern Virginia. Another documentary film friend was covering that, and that's when unfortunately a woman got ran over. I don't know if you recall that. When that was occurring, did you, when you were out there filming and out there as this was happening, was there any apprehension, or were your family scared for you as you're covering this? And I'm sure not by our own people, because it's not our people, it's the people we're actually protesting against. Was there any situations that arose? Were there any pushback? When you get embedded and you're making a project like this, you ever thought about, or in your past or during this project at all? Does that concern you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it concerns me now. It concerned me then. The idea that that people are out there that would be interested in actually doing you harm, for sure. I think there are a lot of people who see this or perceive this us against them phenomenon, and who believe that somehow that when we're fighting for Black people, that we're not fighting for them, in a sense. And I think that's where we get lost. That's where the world winds up. People wind up losing their lives. People wind up being in danger. And I think that's what we saw in Ferguson and with Heather Heyer in Charlottesville. We saw all the challenges that occur when people have misconceptions about this whole protest movement. So yeah, there was definitely a concern. My wife didn't want me to go to a large extent. She wanted me to be very careful. People told me to bring bulletproof vests and hard hats, and there were a lot of warnings before I went out there, and a lot of potential threats from white supremacists, from pro-police groups that ironically enough, right, protect and serve groups, wanting to attack people instead of protecting and serving. But so there were a lot of those groups, and a lot of people that I worked with also that were threatened, and that and Michael Brown Sr. Gets threats, till this day, death threats, and has always gotten them since then. So while trying to grieve his child, he is then also trying to protect his children that are still alive and worry about them and worry about himself. So yeah, I mean, I think there's always been a lot of fear, right? I think, and always been a lot of fear of reprisals since Black people and other people of color have been on this continent fighting for their freedoms. So I think it comes with the territory. It's not something anybody wants, and I just pray that that these people have the common sense and the humanity to leave us alone, really, and to let us live our lives, right? We haven't seen it yet in some cases, but I hope that somehow there's some level of consciousness that's sort of activated by this film.
Definitely.
And that those who watch the film see that it's a fair portrayal of all sides of the equation. And that, while I have a specific point of view, I don't want to rob anybody of their humanity and rob anybody of their perspective in any kind of way that, that disrespects them as a human being, because I don't think that's necessary to get my point across.
Definitely. Exactly. What was was there a hard moment while making this film I'm sure all of it was hard. You know what I'm saying? This subject matter, the purpose that, we of people of color are striving for, and this whole movement that, again, as an Asian American, we benefit, like you said, as a community from you all for the Black Lives Matter movement. My wife's African American. You know what I'm saying? We work hand in hand together, and I'm sure there's a lot of moments that broke you, but can you recall are there any moments while this was while you were putting this project together that you would want to share just was important, and how tight are you all still with the family? Because even though you do this documentary, these people are still become your family, and I've been working on so many projects. I still, we still talk. Are there any updates, to go along with that, since, this documentary is now getting out there and being made to the world, that's now going to hopefully spark conversations, but just moments from putting this together, and any updates since this film wraps?
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you asked a couple questions there, but I
apologize. I can do that sometimes.
That's all good. I mean, I think the first one, I mean, the difficult moments and the challenging moments were, all over the place, raising money.
Yeah.
Just even believing in myself in the beginning, like, can I do this? I've never done a feature-length documentary before. I don't know what it's like. I don't know what it takes. Can I even do this? And it took other people sort of infusing me with their faith and saying, hey, we know you can do this, supporting me, coming in to make it happen. And my wife, it took friends, it took all kinds of people, it took my parents, it took, so those moments were difficult. And certainly editing the film, finishing the film, we finished a version of the film in 2016. And so the challenges and disappointments that came along with finishing in 2016, I'll say probably the most difficult moment is, we finished a version of the film in 2016, not the same one that we're seeing now, but we had meetings at ICM. J. Cole had come on board at that time. We thought we were hot. We thought this is it. I'm sitting at a big table, conference table with all these people, and they're asking, what your next film is going to be. We're really interested. We love it. We're talking, distributors. We're applying to festivals, and then watching that all sort of slip away. Watching, ICM decided that they were going to put their focus on "I'm Not Your Negro" that year, which is a phenomenal film by a hero of mine, Raoul Peck, and I did not know, at least what was conveyed to me by some inside sources was that they're really not going to put their energy behind two Black films that year. I didn't know it was 1970, but I found out, hey, it's still 1970. People are still like, you can't like one film and not like another. And this is a Black film. The Raoul Peck film has an activist bent to it. My film kind of has an activist thing to it. So So it's like, I don't see how those are the same film, but but in the mind of people who are, who are supposed to be allies, supposed to be on the left, the thinking wasn't progressive enough to see that there was room for two films, about that. There's 300 films on World War II, or more probably, but for some reason, they felt like even a film that wasn't even on Ferguson was still a little too much. So I waited till the next year, till 2017, pushed it again, and then Whose Streets came out, which is the other Ferguson doc, which is a good film, totally different, focusing on the partnership between these two women and their activism, and so then that film came out, and they were like, well, there's already a film about Ferguson now, so there was always these excuses and reasons. And then I had to sort of go back and reformulate and think, what would I do differently? And then that's when I decided to focus in on the father and focus in on Michael Brown Sr., who I'd always wanted to focus on, but I just didn't have the time and the resources to do it. And so I felt like, okay, well now, I've sort of been put on hold. Let me go raise some money. And then that money raising, part took, it took about 2 years or so to get a substantial amount of money to be able to then go back to Ferguson and start shooting with Michael Brown again. So there was a gap, and that was a painful gap where, where people like, should I just release it on YouTube? Should I, people were, going through all the thoughts of like, what should I do with this movie? Should I give up? And it took, it took walking the streets, by my house and running into another father who was walking the streets in the daytime. And me realizing he's probably in the entertainment industry because he's, walking around, with a kid in the middle of the daytime, like me. So, and luckily we became friends. And then he's the one who, over time, introduced me to TJ Martin, who then introduced me to David, and David then introduced me to, so all these other people came on board as a result of that guy the random guy in my neighborhood, right?
Wow.
So this filmmaking process and this sort of documentary filmmaking process, has been full of a whole bunch of random events, and I think I met Michael Brown and a senior in a fish fry place, in Ferguson. And, I've been trying to get in touch with these people, couldn't get in touch with these people, but I go to a fish fry place and then right as I'm finishing my fish, he walks in with his wife, we strike up a conversation. That's how that relationship began. I met Michael Brown's cousin through a guy in McDonald's, that he's in the movie as well, so most of the things that happen, in the movie, the people I met, the relationships I built, a lot of it was by accident. And it took a lot of time to build people's trust, to get them to let you in their lives, to let you in their homes, to, so I want to acknowledge everybody, even the people that I didn't agree with. I still acknowledge them for letting me in their homes, for letting me in their lives. And I tried to respect their time as best as I could with the film. And so, so there were a lot of things that were challenging. I think mainly the length of time, the finances, the loss of faith, the sort of development of myself as a producer. I had a lot of producers on board, but I had to raise the vast majority of the money to make the film. And so I had to learn how to do that, and I didn't know how to do that. So now I'm learning how to do that. I'm trying to direct the film. I'm on the phone, even in between all these interviews and things, I'm on the phone still raising money. I got to raise money for the outreach campaign. I got to raise money for the Academy campaign. I got to raise money to do the website. I got to, so
it's
I'm
work.
like,
It's work, man.
exactly. So hundreds of thousands of dollars.
I love you. You still got that passion though. Yeah.
Thank you. And, and it just, so I realized I became good at raising money. I didn't know I became good at raising money. I mean, I learned how to do it, but I didn't know most of that. I knew directing because that's what I'm trained in.
Yeah.
But I had to become a producer in order to become a director, and in fact, I do more producing because I'm working on my own film than I did directing. More of my time is spent doing the producing side, right? So and it still is to a large extent even now. So yeah, those are the challenges for me that we faced getting it out there. Some of them, I think the hesitance and the belief that Ferguson was in the past for a lot of people. I think that that got changed when George Floyd was killed or murdered. But now we're seeing the sort of slipping back into that normalcy again. happening where people are like, Derek Chauvin was convicted, it's all over, Biden's in office now, we can give up and we can sit back, we can pretend like this stuff doesn't happen anymore. And so I think this film stands as a historical marker for this time period, but also, when I always tell people when the streets are cleared and when everyone's gone home, the protest will still be maintained on the screen.
Yes.
And that's the most important thing is, we keep that legacy alive. We keep telling that story because, again, you can't be out in the street every day sometimes, but you can be on the screen every day somewhere in the world telling the story. And, and I wanted to tell the story in a way that also paid respect to Black people and to their resilience in the face of oppression, to their to the Black community, to our resilience, I should say, and to our ability to really, my family comes from Africa, so I kind of slip back and forth in terms of my not wanting to co-opt the African American identity in the sense that I don't share all those experiences. I share the experience of being Black for sure, which is the same globally in a lot of ways. But I also don't share the experience of slavery. I don't share. So I want to acknowledge and pay homage to the people who did share that experience and who through all that still persevered and found hope, love, and beauty in the midst of all that and still do that. And so this documentary for me is a testament to that. I didn't want to dwell just solely in the tragedy. I wanted people to understand that there's hope in community. There's hope within yourself, and that in spite of the world being what it is, and despite things not changing as quickly as we'd like them to, we can turn to each other. We can hold each other up. And I think people, people forget that aspect. I think African American people, really need to be studied for their resilience, for their ability to constantly get back up after, after tragedy, after constant tragedy and constant sort of setbacks in this country. But that's not the part that's emphasized. What's emphasized is crime and Black on Black crime, and things of that sort that are part of perpetuating the racist mythology that keeps Black people in their place and that keeps people separate and feeling disconnected to Black people and the Black experience because they think, oh, those people are lower than us, those people are criminals, those people are thugs. But that's all just orchestrated, in many ways to keep us separate from one another and not realizing that we have something in common, that we all want a better community, we all want a better society, that whether they be white conservatives or Black liberals or radicals or protesters, we all want to live in a society that works. We all want to live in a community that's safe. We all, and there's this sense, this misconception that people want to, that people want something other than that. And I think that's what's really, that's what I'm really trying to overturn, is that sort of thought process. And I'm also trying to connect people with fathers and to have people understand that the full breadth of emotions that fathers experience. We may seem strong on the outside. We may have to cover up this or cover up that because you're men and you're in society and you're not allowed the sort of full spectrum of emotions, but it doesn't mean you don't have them, and so I really wanted to focus on fathers, and I wanted to focus on Black fathers in this case, and someone like Michael Brown to be able to really represent those people, to represent us as a Black community, and to say, and to use him to say that, that Black men, unfortunately, to have to say this, but Black men are human beings. Black men experience pain, and men in general experience pain, and we're sort of sidelined, and we don't deal with our pain and trauma. And so my hope is that Michael Brown Sr. will act as a catalyst to help other men deal with their pain and their trauma. It doesn't have to be from losing your son. It could be from losing your mother. It could be from losing your job. Whatever it is, how do you find purpose in your pain? I think Michael Brown is a good example of how you do that. And I wanted the film to represent that for him and for the rest of the world, really, and for my son specifically, because that's the real inspiration behind the movie for me. Is Michael Brown Jr. when he was killed, he could be anybody, and my son could have been him, I could have been him, and so I want people to be left, and my son in particular, to be left with those lessons where he knows that no matter what you face, you can find community, and you can find hope through community. You can find purpose through community, through building, through giving back. So I know that's a long-winded answer to your question, but that's the essence of what we're going for in the movie is really making sure that we leave people with something other than trauma, something other than pain. Right? I can watch YouTube right now and see 1,000 videos of people getting killed. But we don't understand the repercussions. We don't understand how it impacts the family. We don't understand how it impacts the community. And this film, the goal is to have it focus on have people get a sense of how it impacted the real people, not just the news blip or the story or the sort of that violent event. Their repercussions that last for decades, if not centuries on communities, right? So that's what, we have to acknowledge that, and we have to help people move through that so it doesn't continue to happen in other cities across the United States, like it happened in Minneapolis, just recently, like it happened in all these other towns across the country. We either have to listen to each other and talk to each other and find a way to come together, or it's going to keep happening, and that's not what any of us want in our town or in our community.
Definitely. So well said, sir, and definitely appreciated. So from me to you, thank you for this art, and thank you for that statement, and for the statement that you're doing with this work, because exactly it's going to do that, and I hope it will do that. I know it's going to do that. So thank you for that, and as a father, thank you for this. So definitely. Another question I have is when you've completed the film, and this is different from the 2016 version, what was the reception from the subjects? That what did Michael Brown Sr. think about this? What did some of the other individuals, or have they had a chance to see this version of the film?
Yeah, I mean, they have. Not everybody in the film has seen it. I don't know if some of the more conservative members in the movie have seen the film. I know we emailed them when it came out of the Tribeca Film Festival, and they could watch online at that time. I don't know if they did. I didn't hear back. I know we'll be in St. Louis eventually and showing the film, and so we'll have an opportunity to invite them again and see exactly how they feel. But first and foremost, it was important to me that Michael Brown Sr. and his family felt good about the film, and so that for me was my greatest accomplishment, was to have them tell me how much they loved the film and how much they felt like it represented their true heart and soul and their struggles, to recognize the legacy of his son. So for me, that was the most important thing. And so that was a feeling that was what he told me, and that's what his family's told me. So I'm really, that's number one for me, that they're comfortable with the film, and that it reflects him and the work that he's been doing as accurately as possible. Could I have added more? Sure. But in the interest of serving the broader story as well, I think we did a great job of sort of weaving him through in a way that had him feel respected and had us really connect with the human toll that this sort of thing takes.
Yes. So it's great to hear that they got a chance to see it and they appreciate it. Yeah, it's an amazing story, amazing film. More people need to see this film, and hopefully to continue on the conversation. People start to forget, like you said, and we got to remember, we got to keep on fighting that fight as well. So it opens September 17th at the Lamley Monica Film Center. So as you said, you're going to be taking it to St. Louis, and hopefully more people will get a chance to see this. So what is I spoke briefly on it, but with little knowledge. So how can people catch this film? What are some more of the ranges, and then when will it possibly, or are we still working on it to be made more widely to the public to get a glimpse of this film?
Yeah, I mean, it'll be out in the fall on PBS, RTBS, which is great. I'll have more specifics a little bit later on. I think the best way that people can track the film is to follow us on Instagram at Ferguson_Rises, and on Twitter at the same thing, Ferguson_Rises. We're on Facebook, though I'm less active there, at Hope Love Beauty Project on Facebook, and then our website, hopelovebeauty.com or fergusonrises.com will lead you to the same place. And if you put your email in there, we'll send you a direct email as we make progress and find more opportunities to see it at different festivals across the country and see it online or on TV. We should also have some distribution on one of the platforms, the major platforms, so you can also see it on there eventually. But that probably won't happen until the fall or just a little bit later in the fall, November, December or so. But we're ready, and we're excited to really put this out there and to have people hopefully have a new kind of dialogue around race in this country that really humanizes people and allows people to again to connect with one another.
Yeah, well, I can't wait for the world to see this and start that dialogue. It's just so important. Because when things kind of fade away, then people forget. And as an artist, activist, it's what I strive for and to remind people, and what I do with my show as well, and having these conversations. I can't thank you enough for sharing and for this piece of art, and hopefully it'll inspire the next generation. Mobolaji, beyond Ferguson Rises, what other projects can we maybe also highlight? I know you said you have a ton in the works, but is there any other projects outside of Ferguson Rises that we could maybe kind of give some hints or maybe throw some advanced love on that we can expect from you?
Yeah, thanks, brother. Now that I'm a father, my son wasn't born when this started, but now he's going to be 7 years old soon, and so it's been that long. But now I begin to see myself as someone who makes films for him. He's not old enough to watch these films yet, but when he's old enough, the real impetus, as I mentioned, behind making this film was my son, because I know when he's old enough, he's going to say, "Hey, Daddy, when this whole thing was going on in history, what did you do? What contribution did you make at that time? Were you out there protesting? What were you doing?" And for me, I never wanted that answer to be that I did nothing. So for me, I get to look him in the face and I get to say, after doing this film, that I did something. But now that I did that something, I feel inspired to do something else, to help him, in the future, and to help inform other people, so I make a better world for my child. So my tendency is to move towards sort of making films that really inspire, films that sort of provide some sort of political context and in particular racial context, right? So to humanize Black people, to make films that reflect Black people in a way that humanizes them and makes Black people accessible to the rest of the world in a way that the media doesn't often do. So that's my goal, is to sort of create these counter narratives. I have a civil rights documentary that I'm pitching right now. I'm working on. I can't get into details, but suffice it to say that I think it centers around the idea that the forgotten benefits of the civil rights movement, the idea that that other people benefited from the civil rights movement as well. This forgotten notion that that happened. Or not even, I don't even know if it was forgotten. I don't even know if it was ever put out there necessarily, but this idea that that we all benefited. I think there's this sort of single story that the civil rights movement was something that that only Black people benefited from, that was only for Black people. So now it's easy to take away those rights. It's easy to roll back voting rights and not realize that affects, whatever, abortion rights, it affects LGBTQ rights, it affects handicap, because if you can roll back the rights in one area, you can roll them back in the other. You're setting a precedent that is dangerous, and people don't see the connection when they think about Black people, and that's the sad part about it. So anyway, I thank you very much for your time. Please go see the film. If you're in Los Angeles, go see it at the Lemley Monica Theater on 2nd Street in Santa Monica, right by the beach. If you're not in Los Angeles, follow us on Instagram at Ferguson_Rises. Or on Twitter. I'm more active on Instagram though. And put your email on our website so we can get you informed about this film and about other films. And most importantly, stay safe, stay healthy, with this pandemic,
Definitely. Again, thank you so much, sir. Thank you for this piece of art, and thank you for just the importance of what these films do in helping change the world. So honored to have this conversation with you, sir, and honored to have this material to share with my friends and family. because it is so important. Everybody, make sure I'll have his information in the description below, and you heard it from his mouth as well. Please do all the follows. Again, Mobolaji, greatly appreciate this conversation. Ferguson Rises. Yeah, like I said, it'll be on the description below. Make sure you do all that. Your boy Kuya P, aka Patrick Michael Strange. You can follow me at the NRW, where nerds rule the world. A great film in Ferguson Rises. I hope you all see it, and you hope you share it as well. This important message. Thank you so much, Mobolaji. This has been a great one. NRW, nerds rule the world. Ferguson Rises. Black Lives Matter.
My name is Mobolaji Olambiwonnu. I'm the director of Ferguson Rises. And come check out my interview on the NRW. It's going to be wonderful. And I look forward to hearing from you all. This is Mobolaji Olambiwonnu, the director of Ferguson Rises. Being a nerd of color is important to me because nerds rule the world. Nerds create. Nerds do all kinds of things. We spend the time and take the time to make things happen. If you're not a nerd, become one, because that's going to help you move things forward. All right. See you.